Hello, everybody. Welcome to part one of this week's multi-part lecture series. I think I can pull this up on the syllabus here. There you go. This week we're going to be discussing different art tools that you can use to make your um, level designs and stuff be feel more vibrant and prettier. Basically, a lot of stuff that's like not necessary for simple blockout level design. This isn't something that you're going to need for this week to finish up your projects that are due at the end of the week, but something that you may want to use to enhance the quality of your final projects, which will be starting next week. That's part of it. And the second part is going to be building your project. So something that I think is very important that I try to go over in every class that I run that uses um, a editor or an engine component to it is how to build your projects, just to make sure that this is uh, something that everybody's able to do. Because the last thing that you're going to do when you are creating a project in a editor like Unity or Unreal is package it so that you can distribute it either to players or to those that you want to show your project to. Um, Good for portfolios and things, as well as actually having a game to play. So that's what this part is. This will probably be a two-part video that'll go up today. That will have the first part I'll be showing you how to build your project in Unity. The second part I'll show you how to build a project in Unreal. Um, they're very similar processes, but there are some nuances. Um, and then tomorrow, which will be Wednesday, I'll have some like kind of mini tutorial videos that I'll throw up in the module to um, show off some cool art things that you can do with the engines to be able to enhance your projects. Um, no, again, none of this is necessary for the project for that's due this week, but can be useful for your final project at the end of the course. All right, so let me drag this away. I'm going to try this again. I did this entire recording and realized that at the end of it that I was using a project that didn't want to build. Um, so this is just, I think this was one of the versions of this is one of the versions of the basic um, intro to Unity projects that I was doing a couple weeks ago in the class. I did originally try to do this in, if you go to new project here under learning, the 2D platformer micro game, because I figured this would be small and easy to do. There are actual errors in this game project that require debugging before you can build, and I didn't realize that. I guess it wasn't really designed to ever be built. So I got to the end of the building the building tutorial, and then it errored out while I was building, and I was very confused. So I'm just doing this um, in this project I already have made that doesn't have any build or shouldn't have any build errors because it doesn't have components other than this one scene. Um, you feel free to follow along with the project or with any Unity project that you have, or create a new one and start from there. Um, Whatever's in your game, it's or in the project itself, doesn't necessarily matter for this. Though it will if it gets very large, which we'll go over. So the first thing we want to do after you've loaded up your project to build is go to File and then go to Build Profiles. So under Build Profiles, these are the different platforms that you can build your game in. By default, Unity has Windows and Web, which is WebGL, available to build. If you want to build for one of these two, as they're installed, you can switch between them by clicking the Switch Platform button. And then you can just build by default by hitting the Build button here. But we're going to go through a couple of things first before we build. So the first one is all these other options here All of these, except for the PlayStation options, are available to you through the free Unity license. All you have to do is, if you wanted to say build for iOS, you can click on this button to install it through the Unity Hub, and it'll install the module to your engine, and then allow you to select that as one of your build platforms. In addition, if for whatever reason you're building for a specific platform that's not here, you can add build profiles and customize them yourself, but that's going to require a lot of coding and stuff that's not necessarily covered in this course. So we're just going to focus on Windows. So for Windows, first thing we want to do is make sure that we have all of our scenes selected here. I only have one, so that's fine. If you have more, you can open this up here from the scene list. It's also right here. Check off everything that you want to add, and then click Add Open Scenes to add them to the list. Because this is a single scene, we don't have to worry about that, and for the most part, you probably won't. But that's important to make sure that the scenes that you want to actually build out are in your list. Next thing, we want to go down to our platform settings. So we're building in Windows. Usually these days, most Windows builds are in 64-bit. So by default, Intel 64-bit is totally fine. If you're building for older machines, so if you're building for something with a 32-bit version of Windows 10 or 32-bit Windows XP or Windows 7 or whatever, you might need to choose Intel 32-bit. To build for those specific platforms. In addition, if you're running anything with ARM architecture, which I don't think that that's going to be a big deal for Windows machines now, but check for what you're building for before you decide on which architecture to build for. But by default, 64-bit Intel is totally fine. Oops. We also can have a choice of running the game on a local machine or running it through a remote device. This means streaming. If you are running the game and playing it on the machine that it's installed on, so any computer that you normally play a video game on, or if you're streaming it to a separate device, say like a Steam Deck or a mobile phone, and running it on a PC or like a Google Stadia when that was around, because I guess it's not anymore. The last thing that we need to worry about, we don't need to worry about any of these other options, but if we are making this for debug reasons, so if we are giving this to our QA team or handing it out to playtesters to keep track of, or to be able to tell us if there are any issues in the game, we would check development build. This will allow us access to error logs and debug tools within the game, so you'll have access to terminal inside the game so you can run commands and things. These are very specific things that you may not want on your packaged build, your actual final build. So you just want to make sure that you're checking development if it's supposed to be under development, or if it's not, uncheck it to make sure that that doesn't get added. And that's everything we need here. So the next thing that we're going to go into is player settings, which you can click this button in build profiles to open up player settings. You can also go to edit and then project settings. And then from here, we want to go to player. So under the player settings, these are a lot of the tools. The options here are things that you need to worry about for final packaging. So company name, product name, version number. These are all things that are specific to the build that you're making. So when you release the game, you want to make sure that in the metadata you have your company name, your product is called what it's supposed to be called, whatever your game title is, and you're using the correct version. These are more kind of like boilerplate stuff for the players to see to make sure that they're running all the correct stuff in their game. Your icons and cursors, the same idea. These are just images. The icon images will show up in your icons on your taskbar, as well as the shortcuts on your desktop, things like that. And then the cursor is the shape of the cursor that you're actually using. down here we have these tabs. So this one is for Windows, Mac, and Linux, and then this one is for web. Again, if you go back over here, we have Windows and web as our only two build profiles. So that's why we have options for these. And we don't really need to worry about stuff here too much because most of this is for presentation for the game. Well, the only thing we really want to worry about is under resolution and presentation that we are running the correct settings for our resolution. So if we are we get to decide on the size of the screen when it launches. So full screen mode, you have a couple options here. If you've played games that have different window modes, this is those. So full screen window is kind of what I have set up here, where it fills your full screen, but it's still technically a window. You can drag it around. Exclusive full screen is just full screen from edge to edge without any actual window architecture here at all, such as your minimize and your close buttons. And then maximize window is the largest that it can be given the container it's in. And then windowed mode is windowed mode. It's a small window like this. So if we set this to windowed mode, then we get to choose the default screen height and width. It's set, I believe that's set by default to 720p. And you can change it to whatever you want. I've changed it to 1920 by 1080, which is the resolution for 1080p. If you're starting in windowed, it's a good idea to set it smaller than the target resolution size for the game itself. So like if I am running on a 1080p monitor, or I expect people to be playing on a 1080p monitor, maybe I set it to 720p to make sure that it fits within a smaller window. I'm not worried about that right now. This is just my default for this, but we're just going to leave it at windowed. And then there's a bunch of other options here that we don't necessarily need to mess with, but these are standalone player options that'll give you access to different features in your game. All right, let me restart this recording real fast so I don't run out of time. All right, and we're back. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to, still in the project settings menu, we're going to go down to quality. This is just to make sure that the graphic quality levels in our game are preset. So by default, you'll have a bunch of different options here, very low to ultra. You'll also have your different build profiles here. So your web there and your Windows, Mac, and Linux there. And then these green check marks are the defaults that the game is going to start as before the player can change their options. If you want to change these defaults, you can go to these arrows down here and change them, and you'll see the arrow move. In general, you just want to make sure that Windows is set to ultra. For smaller games, totally fine for what we're doing. It just uses the highest graphical fidelity it can. If you're running something if you're making something that's like really big and really graphically intensive, you may want to set it to, say, high by default, so that the game doesn't like slow down older systems and things like that. If you're building on, say, mobile, you want to set it to one of the lower settings to make sure that because mobile devices are a lot weaker than consoles or PCs, you want to make sure that it's not going to crash on the mobile game when it first opens up. To check what these actually do, you can click on one, and then here are all of your options. I'm not going to mess with any of these, but you can, depending on what graphical fidelity you're actually looking for in your game. But the only thing we really want to make sure here is, I just wanted to show you that these settings are available and that we are set to ultra for our Windows version. One more thing you can do with this is, if you have all these levels, but you want to customize the types of levels that you have access for players. So say I want low, medium, high, and ultra. I can get rid of these very low by hitting the trash can here, and then very high, click on it, hit the trash can there. And now I have low, medium, high, and ultra as my quality levels. These are also default your options menus for your for your players to change things. So they can change things based off of these profiles, and they'll affect the game in this way. That's it for project settings. So now we should be able to just go ahead and hit the build button, and this will open up a place where we want to build the game to. So I'm going to make a new folder. I'm just going to call it Windows because this is a Windows build. I'm going to select that folder, and then it's going to build. I'll be right back for when it's done. Okay, and now it has completed. You can tell because if you go down here to the bottom, it'll say build completed with a result of succeeded, and it'll tell you how long it took to build. If you have any errors, it'll show that here as well. And then if you go to the console tab here, you can see the log of it building. So here it says build completed. So now if we go into our, I don't think this is the right. Is this the right? Yes, this is the right one. Okay, cool. Go into our folder here. So I set it up as this Windows folder. Go into it. You'll see we have our application, which is our .exe file. This will just run the game, and then all of our different folders and asset folders and things that we have that are needed to run the game. And that's all you need to do to build a project for Unity. To distribute this to other people, and again, this will change based off of your project requirements. You may have to build an installer, which I'm not going to go over because that's far more complicated. But to distribute this to other people, you can just send this straight to a compressed folder, and then once it's finished compressing, pass it on to whoever you want. Next up, for the next part of this, I'm going to do the same thing in Unreal Engine, kind of show you the differences because there are a couple. But there's your build. All right, be right back with or see you guys in the next video. Yeah.